We're at a historic tipping point for women. In October 2017, the hashtag #MeToo spread across the globe. What began as a Hollywood sexual assault scandal sparked a public reckoning around the world.
I was asked as to why I'm putting together these conversations about such delicate and incendiary topics. And the truth is, I've been frustrated watching the news and reading the newspaper about the lack of candor and balance in discussing these issues that affect us all.
I've seen signs of kind of panic around sexuality and particularly a tendency to vilify all men.
People are not actually going through any court process.
We are risking a kind of sort of social media lynching.
For me, it's important to maybe inject some light into these large conversations. I am Matthew Mitchell. Welcome to Provocative Conversations. Kelly, before we move on, I want to talk, and we'll come back to it as well, but I want to just touch on Judge Kavanaugh and his confirmation hearings in the Senate. The disappointment to me was that in our society, at least now, we have been shown that by acknowledging what you did and apologizing cost you. Donald Trump was accused of a number of things. He denied it. Al Franken. He was accused of touching women's bottoms, and he acknowledged it, and he apologized, and then he was pressured to step down.
Right.
And what I'm advocating for men to do in owning it and apologizing, we have not seen a lot of reinforcement for that, and it's tremendously unfortunate. And it would have been nice if Judge Kavanaugh said, you know something, I don't remember if that happened or not. Quite frankly, it was too long ago, but if it did, I really apologize because it was hijinks and it obviously damaged you, and I'm really sorry. But he didn't have the wherewithal to do that because then we'd have to admit he had a drinking problem back then. So that's why
Not just a drinking problem, a raping problem.
Well, he was an entitled little rich boy, and it was frustrating for me to see that.
Well, I know that there's something underneath all of this, something maybe from your past that's driving you to want to explore this conversation more. So what's the driver?
Okay, thank you. I've been in business for over 30 years, and the majority of that has been spent as a consultant to the Fortune 500, teaching them how to be more effective in certain aspects of their business. So I have been a coach for a very long time. Combine that with the hospice work that I did. I was a hospice volunteer for 9 years and president of the board of the nonprofit, as well as enormous amounts of personal work, led me to personal coaching, not just executive coaching, but just normal people as well as high-level executives. And it's this notion of being a coach and helping people be more effective in what they do that led me to this, because I'm seeing what's happening in our society, and I say, wow, I want to coach men to be more effective, and we talked about their contribution, and I want to coach women to be more effective, to not be as harassed.
Right.
So that's really what I want to do.
Harassable.
Right. And I want to go there now, and I want to talk about what women can do to take back, instead of waiting for a law to be passed or their daddy to be involved, what they can do in the moment to limit or end harassment in their world. And I want to say unequivocally, this is not a panacea. It's not going to work all the time. The story that you had about the television show, you were offered that part. There's nothing you could have said short of sleeping with him that would have got you that job. Okay, so it's not going to work all the time, but it's going to work a percentage of the time. And the reason I say this is because I believe the majority of men are good people. They're either unaware of their behavior, they're insensitive to their impact, but if they're given an appropriate boundary, that's not a frying pan over the head, but an appropriate boundary, the majority are going to say, wow, okay, my bad, you're right, I'm backing off. And that's what I want to talk about now, what women can do to call men into a higher way of being.
So we're talking about if the 80-20 rule is true, then we're talking about the 80% of normal, regular, healthy men that might need some healthy boundaries set by women. Okay, so what are some of those ways that women can approach those men?
So the first one is an acknowledgement that, and I will use the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, because it tends to hold. The overwhelming majority of men are good people, and women need to acknowledge that. They can't paint all men with the same brush.
Correct.
Because it's counterproductive, and women and men need to ally themselves to support each other. Historically, women have not been great supporters of other women. They've been competitive, especially in corporate America. It's only now that we see women starting to mentor other women in the last 5 to 10 years.
In the business world, I think that's true. I think there's different archetypes and different sects of society where women have been traditionally very supportive, but we're talking about business.
My wife is big into women's groups and women's supporting, but I'm talking about in corporate America, absolutely right. So the acknowledgement first has to come that most men are open and willing at a certain point to be a champion, to be a partner.
Yes.
The second thing is this, and this sounds silly, but it's important. The sexual desire in heterosexual men for women is ingrained in our DNA.
Yes.
There's nothing that men can do about that.
Right.
Now, I have the privilege of having, I have 2 horses, I have 2 dogs, and I watch animal behavior, and we have loving dogs, but I've seen them get in fights because dogs fight.
Right.
And you have to manage it. You have to pull them off before they damage another dog, or vice versa. But you're not going to change that instinct in dogs. They bark, they fight when the situation arises. So we consider ourselves higher primates. We are an evolved species, and we want men to elevate and think and act out of their higher masculine. But not all men do that.
Right.
So to the degree a man's done his work, and he's introspected, and he's seen maybe areas he can improve.
Done his work, because not everybody knows.
Read appropriate books, maybe gone to therapy, maybe gone to men's groups, maybe had the introspective process.
Taken an introspective look at himself.
Absolutely. Then it's going to be easier. But women need to know this is nature at work.
Correct.
So
our species wouldn't be sitting here right now were it not the case.
It's never going away.
Right.
It's never going away. So it's about not only men having to stand up and manage that, but women helping men manage that.
Correct. All of us need to level up.
All right. So, and this is going to be delicate. So the women watching this now, I want you just to breathe and,
Put on your combat boots, ladies.
Yeah.
Take off your high heels.
The best way to deal with sexual harassment in the workplace is in the moment. It's not 36 years later at a Senate confirmation hearing. Now, here's the problem that a lot of men...
Got a nostril flare
That's
out of
okay.
me right there.
Sexual harassment is best dealt with...
to that one.
Now, let's talk about Professor Blasey Ford. I personally believe that everything she said was absolutely true. I believe it happened just the way she said it did.
You hear those parrots? They're a little pissed at you right
That's
now.
okay.
They can tell that you're about to say something that's going to piss them off.
That's okay. I believe that everything she said was true. And I understand why she came forward when she did. Because before he wasn't going to be nominated for a Supreme Court justice. So she saw the opportunity and she did her civic duty. And I want you to know, I'm extremely impressed with her courage and what she did for this country, because it's going to have very powerful repercussions and very powerful effects. The problem many people had with it was the notion that you cannot hold a 17-year-old drunk boy accountable for what he did at that time. Now, if it's a capital crime like murder or kidnapping, that's different. But a lot of people had a problem holding 17-year-old boys accountable for their behavior. And I personally, as a man who I feel is somewhat reasonable in this, even though I was not a proponent of Judge Kavanaugh. I didn't like his policies. We saw who he was in his response. And yet, if you denied him that from something he did when he was 17, it can come back and bite us. I don't think we have to be holding minors accountable 36 years later.